Welcome, perverts. Our hiatus has passed. Vacations are done.
We're back.
We're back.
We're normal again.
How are
We're
you?
normal.
How are you doing, Dag?
I'm all right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Sounds like there's some hurt behind those eyes.
Well, you know the realities of my existence. I am Dag, and I have to talk to me every day of my life. So unfortunately, I see me every day, but I'm doing all right. It's been about a month since we've talked to you guys, to you folks. Yeah. But some life happened in between. We had some loss. We had some travels. We had some unravels. But we're here. We're back. We're working on it.
We are.
We're working on it. We're still alive. You can't kill us. We've mostly tried.
Exactly. Yeah, I had a vacation and then did some more traveling. Not so much vacation time, but yeah, I got back. Did some rallycross with the wonderful people of Out Motorsports this last weekend.
How'd you place?
I just missed the podium. I was fourth.
Oh,
I'm gonna blame it on the fact that my first heat, it was raining, and the second group that went out after me had a more dry course, so I did not really have proper tires for rallying. It was
you were on your Summers.
Yeah, well, I don't have any other tires.
Yeah, that's fair.
Our friend Evan, who is a member, he brought his mobile tire station that he just started a business for. He drove it down from Philly, and he was offering anybody who wanted tires mounted. He would mount them for 20% over cost of the tire. And I really wanted to take him up on the deal, but I'm just like so cash poor with all of my Miata adventures that I was like, man, I can't swing it or justify like buying wheels and tires, knowing that it's like strictly for that event. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, I'll use the winners eventually. Like I need to buy them, but I'm like, well, I gotta just wait till October.
You probably don't need winners in the period that they would start dry rotting within like 5 years.
Yeah. I mean,
you would use them for rally stuff, but
I will say the new Corolla, I drove that out there, and I'm gonna be really like, it's definitely gonna be a letdown to go back to the other cars out there when I start doing rallycross around town. Because it was just so much better at it. But I want to keep it alive longer. So probably going to draft the Miata into duty for a little while I work on the CRX. So yeah, you're right. I did not need the winter tires. I was strictly going to pay to win with them. And I didn't swing it, but other than the first run, yeah, I performed pretty well. It was pretty dry, so it was more, it was like driving on slidey pavement. Yeah. So I did pretty well. I did place first. I had the top overall time one time, so I got that. I was competing against a BMW X5 that two guys had rented. And they were driving it like they were on PCP. The cops were chasing them, and one of them actually almost flipped it. It was, but he debeated a tire off of that. So we were joking that they need to class it next time as not by power numbers, which is what they usually do, but they need to class it by. Are you driving the car home afterwards?
Yeah.
Or do you post pictures of this to Instagram to look nice? So, because I obviously had it dialed back an inch or so because I didn't want to be paying for a third bumper on the GR. So So yeah, but it was a blast. It was a lot of fun. It's always fun to do rallycross. I highly recommend it. It's pretty cheap to get into, and you can. It's not very destructive on your car, despite like what I've been saying. We just had kind of a weird spot that did take some. It did take some chunks of flesh, but yeah, it's great. It's like usually the events are like $50, and it's a lot of fun to drive on the dirt. So
Nice.
so I did enjoy that. Yeah, it's always good. The weather's getting nicer. I finally got around to fertilizing the bonsai, so
Oh
did
yeah.
that today, and I'm covered in pollen, and my skin itches really bad. But
It's been raining here, which is great. It did get
yeah,
warm last night, but of course, rain means that it's just kicking up all of the pollen.
yeah,
And so for those of us that suffer and pay the Walgreens and CVS for allergy medicine, it is that time. We're here.
yeah. Dude, I can't believe how expensive fucking allergy medicine is. Every time I go
It
down there, I'm
never
like,
seems like it
not
works
believe.
either, but
Yeah, yeah. No, it frequently does not seem like it works, but yeah, yeah. It is good. It's good to. I know I was talking about how the weather was kind of conspiring against me, and it still is a bit, but it is getting nicer. So like I'm glad to be getting out and possibly tackling a couple of projects before it becomes so
yeah,
fucking hot that
I've
you
been
don't want to be outside.
I've just been disappointed that it's just been every time that it's nice, it's just so wet, either snow melt or rain or whatever here. So I really need to get some disc golf rounds in before I go down to Kentucky and have a disc golf weekend here in 2 weekends. But
Yeah,
it's it's hard. It's wet, it's muddy, it's rainy, it's snowy. It's like no in
yeah,
between. No in between. But it's been really nice and beautiful here. And hopefully my daffodils will pop
yeah.
soon and we'll be very happy.
We already had daffodil season.
Yeah,
Mine are already bloomed and gone.
Maryland was slamming. I was told by um the nephew's friend's father, Wade, he said that if you see yellow daffodils around a house, it means that they were a Sears customer.
Huh,
Those Sears sent those out with the mail order catalog. And they did
huh.
notice that all over all over Maryland, DC runoff, there were yellow daffodils everywhere. But they were really
Well,
slamming. Mine are just like getting to where they can start flowering. Fingers
yeah.
crossed.
Well, if it's yellow, let it mellow.
Don't flush your daffodils. Keep them
That's what.
around. Keep them around.
Um, what was I gonna say? Yeah, talking about getting getting behind on practice or whatever. I think I was talking about with somebody in guitar chat about how I've been kind of like getting lazy with practicing. So I did start that again today after talking
On
about that.
guitar?
No, I pulled out the accordion.
Oh, okay.
I've given up on the guitar.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I pulled out the accordion. I have these lesson books that I ordered from France that are like really good. And I start working through them, and then I don't keep up with it. So I'm going to try and
Yeah.
at least finish one of these books, hopefully this month or so. But yeah, it's fun to play it. And it sounds cool. So I need to get back into that and practicing harmonica.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, been trying to get back, maybe get a little bit more routine going
Yeah.
again
Well,
with
and
with that.
this is the time of year that like some of those hobbies or things that we've kind of fallen off on like seem enticing and feel exciting again. Like as goofy as spring cleaning feels, and you know, as silly as it feels to be like, oh, it's over 50 degrees, I'm ready to like live my life again. Sometimes you just have to take it and just
Yeah, yeah, for
let it,
sure, sure.
if you
Like,
can take any sort of current through the rapids, take the current.
yeah, by mid-January, yeah, I do kind of like give up on doing everything. I'm just like, oh, I can't even think about
Yeah.
functioning any longer.
Yeah. I mean,
When that would be the perfect time to practice accordion.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, going to see bluegrass in Virginia definitely got me back to being like, you know what, I need to put the capo on and just play along to some songs. Just
Yeah,
do anything at all with it.
yeah. Well, it's like a hard thing to like practice instruments sometimes because it's like uh it is kind of tedious. And my harmonica teacher always said like he doesn't really practice a lot because of that he'll kind of like he'll really only do it like 10 minutes a day of like but you know, I mean he obviously plays like every day.
Mm-hmm.
And he probably does other things that you would consider practice because he's a professional musician. You know, he spends a lot of time working on material and like learning material he's supposed to be performing. But you know, he says like actually, you know, working on a on techniques or scales or whatever, he really only spends about 10 minutes a day. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for
Yeah,
is try to hit like 20 minutes a day or so
yeah. I
of
mean,
working through the book and shit, and then letting it slowly progress.
yeah. That's always like my my grad school mentor always was into that. Like as far as like in education psychology and homework, it's just like if you study for 5 minutes a day every week or whatever, just like some like really ridiculously small amount of time, then that's like better than cramming for 6 hours the night before a
Oh yeah,
test
yeah,
or
for
whatever.
sure.
Like it's just about slowly pushing it into your brain until it
Well, and
feels
that's
natural.
I feel like that's the other thing that's always difficult, like learning instruments, like when, especially when you're an adult, is like, it's just I want to get to the point that I can just like effortlessly do things,
Yeah.
or not effortlessly, but you know, you're not like spending so much time like figuring out everything as you're doing it, and you can just kind of like express yourself freely with it. And that's always what kind of ends up slowing me down is I'm like, oh, like I can't just like do this at like a lower. It's always like a very focused and
Yeah.
applied thing. I mean, other than harmonica, I can buck around on harmonica. Uh,
Yeah, and we talked
but
about that
yeah,
before, especially like in the regards of music. Like the hard thing with music again is just that like you can listen to people that are virtuosos easily all the
yeah,
time,
yeah,
and then whenever you do anything, it's just like what the why can't I do that? It's like because the
yeah,
person you're listening to, that was all they liked. That was all they had through through their sad sorrows and sadness and their
yeah,
familial crises and whatever.
yeah. It's that's always what kind of gets me off the guitar. Is it's like I'm like, man, I just wish I could noodle, and I can't figure out anyone to teach me how to just be a noodler, and so then I'll just be kind of bored with it.
Yeah.
Plus, it just it takes, you know, you gotta like plug it in and all that shit. Like it's just so tedious. Like
Yeah.
the
Oh,
harmonica, I could just pick up off my desk and play it for 5 minutes and then just be done with it.
yeah.
Like, and kind of similar with the accordion is it just doesn't require all that fucking setup. Like, so yeah, I want to. I wish I could play the guitar, and I've tried probably 4 times in my life to get going on it, and it just never works out. So
Yeah. It's oh like I always basically reject the idea that I'm when people are like, oh, you play guitar. I'm like, I reject that concept. I have guitars and I play them, and like that's as deep as that can be
yeah,
construed. And I would
yeah.
never conflate myself to be like a guitar player. Um,
Right, like I can never, like I could learn, like that's the thing is I could like learn songs, but which is always weird because you know you'll be like I want to learn this song, and you'll be like oh, then you'll realize like as you're doing it like it's either way simpler, so it's kind of boring to learn the song, or it's like 5 different parts in the song and you can't play them all simultaneously, and so then you're just kind of like well, like I don't feel like I'm doing anything. like, and I can't play well enough to like kind of like add my own flourish or like
Yeah.
kind of arrange it into a way that if like a single guitar player was trying to like convey this song or whatever, which is why I think like people end up learning like the same kind of classics or whatever, you know, like the
Smoke on the
say it ain't
water.
so's and whatnot of the world. Yeah, you
Yeah, I
know.
mean, it's. I
Yes.
think the hard thing is that like getting to the point where you know the fretboard and you know the scales and you know all the keys, and somebody can be like, "This is an E," and I like this is what you'll do in it. You like that's that's actually way harder to get to than it seems like it should be, because
Yeah.
you're like what you need to know to be conversational and like order a sandwich in Paris and speaking French. It's
Yeah.
like it somehow ends up being easier than trying to figure out like how do I show up to the jam and know how to exist inside this
Yeah.
song. It's actually harder than it seems, but also we've been listening to music forever, like most of us. So it's very difficult to get to.
Yeah.
And also reconcile why can't I understand that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, I remember always feeling like when I was, you know, like when I was in high school, I played classical bass, and I was good enough to get. I was in IMEA and that kind of stuff. But like I never like felt like I knew what was. I was just like reading. You know what I mean? So I never felt like I
Yeah.
was always like, where is the part where like and then I, you know, then you find out that's like a whole nother world. And yeah, it is weird that like I felt very trained at it, but I never felt like I
Yeah.
was in command of the instrument. Like I
Yeah,
was, yeah,
it's very interesting that spending 5th grade through 8th grade taking band and jazz band and all of these different things and learning how to read sheet music and play a saxophone did
yeah,
did not teach me music theory at all, because at the end of the day your music teacher wants you to be able to play like some song that your parents can hear and say, wow, I knew what that was. And that was the whole goal of band. It wasn't to teach you how to do things, it was to teach you how to like execute one band concert that justified the program existing.
yeah, yeah. Like obviously, like
And
I
they
was
your
in
parents
jazz
still
band.
made fun of you
They
too.
they tried to, you know, obviously jazz band. They give you a little bit more freedom to like try and figure out those things, but you know, I never was very good at it.
Yeah.
So So yeah, so we'll see how the accordion goes. I kind of just want to be able to play like some songs that sound, you know, I'm just taking it as it is. Like I bought this series because they do kind of eventually I know like in the later books they kind of like teach you to like, you know, like I got it specifically because I was playing at the blues jams a lot, and like it was the one thing I could find that kind of like taught blues accordion. So there's this guy, Cedric Watson, that I really like. He's a multi instrumentalist. He's kind of in the mold of Dom Flemings, if you know Dom Flemings.
No.
But he's like a Louisianan player, and he plays fiddle and accordion and I
Mhm.
think banjo.
I
But he,
know Chubby Carrier.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the other thing about the accordion is like many people play the piano accordion, and I play the button accordion.
Hmm.
So, so it's harder. Yeah. So like, yeah, I can play blues on a piano accordion very easily because it has all the notes.
But
But like
do you know
basically
how to
my
play Who Stole the Hot Sauce?
no,
Okay,
I
because
don't
that's
know.
because
Yeah. Well, yeah.
that's what
So,
I know, because
anyways,
I saw him play in the Lake of the Ozarks at some like
oh yeah, yeah,
some
for
triple
sure.
decker bar. Um, and the
Yeah, no,
guy
he's awesome. I love him. Yeah.
Zydeco is very fun, honestly. But the
Um.
guy who was really getting it in was the guy who played the washboard, because he kept putting it on all the wives
Oh yeah.
at the event and letting them play it, and then milking that as to the degree that he could.
Well, I mean, he probably wasn't getting paid very much.
No,
So
no,
you
I
got to
don't
do
know
what you
what you
can.
get paid to work in a fucking inlet of the Ozarks, but anyway, continue.
But yeah. So he does a lot of interesting stuff. He's kind of expanded from like folk roots into his own style. So that kind of inspired me to want to learn that. So obviously the difference between playing like blues on the harmonica and blues on the button accordion is that you can't bend notes on an accordion. Just kind of wanted to learn the instrument and like get comfortable with it, and then figure out some of his stuff. What's his face? The country guy, Willie Carlisle. He plays a button accordion too, and he has interesting stuff. So I figured like once I kind of get a foundation, maybe I can, because my ear has improved a lot, like since learning harmonica. So, I would feel comfortable if I was like knew my way around the instrument to like listen to somebody else play and then figure out what they were doing once I'm familiar with the instrument. I'm not going to go like full JD Crowe where he has his sister like holding her finger on the record player so he can learn Earl Scruggs by ear. Like, but like I do feel comfortable that like I am familiar with a couple people doing cool stuff with it. That like if I get a foundation, like that's kind of my goal. People love it. Like people knew that I played it a little bit, and I've already had multiple times people ask if I can play it for like a Mardi Gras celebration or whatever, party, like stuff like that.
Do they want you to play Mama's Got a Squeeze Box?
Probably, which is why I have to tell them no. Also, because I can't really play accordion. So, like I was like, yeah, like no. When I say like I play it, I mean like I know what the keys do and stuff, but I'm not like I certainly could not come and perform on the instrument.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, but like I think it would just it would be cool to have it in the repertoire for the mythical band that I eventually join someday.
Yeah, are you gonna bring Are you gonna bring the harmonica and the accordion to jam music, or what's up?
Well, that would be sweet. Yeah, it would be nice maybe to even, I know that there's people doing country music and stuff around here, so find someone doing that. One of it, like, I feel like between those two instruments, somebody wants one, for their band or both even. So, but yeah. So we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna put my head down on it and see what happens.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've mostly just been painting Warhammer figures lately. It's been great. It's very satisfying. I got the nephew into it. We bought him some Space Marines. I taught him how to glue them together. Let him paint a grot, an orc grot. So he's now on his way. And then, unfortunately, Claire's father did pass in March, and that was very sad and somewhat sudden. And but her mom did give me his cameras that were in the house, so I had some film cameras to shoot with. And on the way home from Maryland, I stopped at the Frank Lloyd Wright Falling Water House and shot a roll of film on one of those old Nikons that he had. So that was fun. Hopefully those turn out, and I can send those to her family and be like, here's your dad's camera, still going. Did some shooting at some concerts and wrestling shows as well before that, so I need to get those developed and catch back up on that.
Nice.
But yeah, and then otherwise, while I was in Maryland, I ran down to Luckett's to go and catch the bluegrass shows down there. It's like every Saturday from October to April. There's a bluegrass show on Saturday night at Luckett's, and enjoyed that. That's got me back wanting to pick the acoustic up and pick some Tony Rice licks and pick back up on the bluegrass thing. So we'll get that going. And then I just got my room rearranged so that the sim racing rig is ready to go at all times. So I've got to get myself ready to get to the next level of oval racing, so I can keep hearing all the gamer words from guys in Iowa who are mad that they got wrecked on the first lap of ARCA races. So ready to go, ready to catch back up, ready to get back into it.
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, I need to upgrade my computer because I want to get back into it, practicing
Yeah.
driving for a
Yeah.
bit.
I guess the only other thing I need to get, like, I want to get back into this week is, like, I just want to get baking going again.
Oh yeah, yeah, for
Just, like,
sure.
want to have a focaccia to have breakfast with and dinner with and sandwiches on. Just a nice treat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is always nice. Sarah's been baking a little bit of bread too.
Nice. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
always fun, and it's definitely something you never master.
Oh yeah, definitely. Um, well, yeah. I guess on that vein, we kind of briefly want to discuss our topic. Um, and I was thinking about this because of doing some bowling tournaments and doing the car racing. Not to say that it was really out there at the car racing, but uh, people who take their hobbies too seriously to the point that they get upset about it is kind of what I was thinking. For instance, bowling at the bowling tournaments, they have entry fees. They're usually not super high. No more than $50. But you'll see a lot of people who show up, and the first game, if it doesn't go well, they pack it all up and leave like in a huff.
Oh
And
God.
it's like, and it's just kind of like, man, you know, like what were you thinking? Like, do you think you win every one? Do you like? Were you not expecting to just have a good time and possibly win? Like, I don't get it. How you could kind of be doing something that you're supposed to enjoy, uh, and let's be real. Like, you're not doing it at a very high level most of the time,
Yeah.
and like how especially when things don't go my way when I'm bowling, I just go have another beer and then
Yeah, I mean, it's
talk
you can't be
talk with
Bill
my
Murray.
friends.
You can't be Bill Murray and Kingpin, and you're at like the countryside lanes, like
Yeah, I mean,
on like
like a lot
$2
of
beer
like
night.
that's the thing is, yeah, a lot of people I bowl with are around scratch. Like many of them are especially the tournaments above 200 averages, and but it's like, okay, we're not even near the level of like where pros are. Like, we're still bowling on the house shot, which means like the way that the oil is laid out on the lane is it's pretty advantageous for high scores.
Yeah,
Like, the pros bowl on oil patterns that make it difficult to keep the ball like where you want it to go and behave the way you want it to behave. And it's just like, man, like, like, I think that's what a lot of it is I think a lot of people get really pissed off once they've kind of realized that they've topped out, or even not even necessarily topped out, but they're just not making the rapid progress that they're used to or thought that they should have. And they, instead of like, taking a step back, being like, okay, well, I'm doing something that I enjoy, allegedly. Part of bowling is just not bowling very well. Like, I take bowling seriously. Like, I focus and try to do the right thing, and when I don't do it, I do get a little frustrated with myself sometimes. But it's
yeah.
like, I just can't imagine like being so pissed off that you're like, oh well, this isn't even worth doing anymore. Like, it's like you paid the $50.
Last
You
time
might as
I
well
was
bowl the games.
last time I was in league, I hurt my wrist, and then sometime around then, our two partners on our team stopped showing up. So then it just became a chore
Yeah.
because it was like my wrist hurts, and I can't, my technique is off because my wrist is destroyed. But then also, like, now I'm like recruiting people to like come and join. And there were times in there where there were some weeks where it was just like, well, this was a good time, but like not as good of a time as it could have been because I had to like text 5 people to
Yeah,
find
yeah,
two
yeah,
people
yeah.
who could show up. But like, why did you sign up to do that in the first place? What did you hope to achieve? And what you hope to achieve was like, wouldn't it be fun? Wouldn't it be nice if there was one night in my
Yeah.
week that was fun? And it can be, it still
Right.
can be. And, you know, I, I played disc golf tournaments before where this guy was like throwing his bag into the trees and he was taking discs out of his bag and throwing the discs into the trees. And then on the 18th
Yeah.
hole of the round, which, you know, if you're familiar with golf, it's the final hole, he hit the cage and his disc rolled down the hill like 100 feet away. And instead of just like throwing 2 more shots, he picked his disc up and left. And it was just like, why the fuck are you here? Like, you paid to play this disc golf tournament and you clearly suck. But like,
Yeah.
this is your problem and not our problem. Like, don't make me, my thing is this, like, you know, like, don't make me tell you as another adult that you're ruining people's night. Like, you have to be within that yourself.
Yeah.
But the first person whose night you're ruining is your own. It's your own day. You're like wasting your own time to be that emotional about this thing. And at the end of the day, it's always, what am I here for? I'm here to have fun and enjoy this. And if you're not having fun, then it's like, okay, you need to start mitigating ruining other people's day.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, and that's even the thing is, you know, I mean, even last week, I had a really bad performance, like very, very sub my ability. And, you know, I certainly wasn't happy about it, but Sarah was bowling incredibly well.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, if I had been a baby about it, like, I would have certainly ruined. She might not even want to go bowling anymore if I had ruined her night being a fucking dickhead.
Yeah.
And it's like, most of the time, I will say though too, most of the time, probably about 90% of the time, when things start going bad, you just have, like, I'll take a step back and be like, you know what? I just have to forget that happened. And at the very least, I can come back and perform at least as well as I expected, or better even. And that's at least something. You know what I mean? And if you get fussy or down on yourself and pissy about it, it's like, well, okay, then, like, why even do it? Like, if it makes you miserable, like, if you're like, I used to be like that when I played golf in high school. I would get really hard on myself when things would go bad, and I quit. I just quit playing. And then when I came back to it, I was like, okay, well, you know, you're doing this because you're having fun. And you guess what? I'm much fucking better at golf now. Like,
yeah. Well,
like,
I mean, with anything competitive at that level, even at the level, like not even at like, oh, I'm at a professional level, at like a competitive level at all, you need to be able to have the mental game. And it's like, everybody acts like it's just golf, and I think the only reason they do that is because it's just like rich guys who went to Ivy League schools think that they play golf, and like, oh, golf is the mental game. It's just like any fucking, like, basketball is a mental game, football's a mental game, anything is a mental game, because like your brain is the ECU that makes your body work. Like, you can't do any level of anything without having a mental game to it. Like, that's insane, stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I realized that that's why I liked bowling, and that's why I liked disc golf and things like that, is because it's like, it's an individual competition. Like, you are, the first thing you have to do is not beat the other person. It's, you have to like figure out how to get yourself ready to do the thing and ground yourself and get yourself to practice and get yourself to realize, like, hey, if I keep making mistakes, those are correctable. And that's the focus. Isn't that I'm failing, it's that I need, like, there's something I can do to fix that, or like, well, how do I get through that? What do I need to do?
Mm-hmm.
And like, the first disc golf tournament that I ever shot par at was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and the round was, I was shot par because I felt myself feel anxious and doubt myself, and I just stepped off the tee pad. And I would take a breath and clear my mind and go, you know what? I can throw this across this pond. It's not that far.
Yeah.
And then guess what would happen? I would throw it across the pond.
Yeah.
And that's as simple as all these things are, is just giving yourself belief and visualizing. And visualization's a big thing in like performance psychology, visualization of succeeding and doing different things like that. And so I would do that in bowling, and I would do that in different things. And like, so much of it is really simple. Like, you look at the pin you want to hit, you try to line your body up to where your throwing motion is going to put the ball there, and if you're not on some crazy irregular pattern that only so many people in the world know, then the ball's probably going to get there, because that's how the game is built.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to, you do have to be able to calm yourself down, and talk to yourself.
I think it's just kind of just a lot of people just fear failure when they experience it. It's like just such a, it's just it just makes them feel so bad. And like, it is a little different when you're doing things you know that are individual compared to like with a group of people, because when you're doing it with a group of people, you can blame them, is what I usually do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, but it is like, you do have to have humility to be good at things. And when you're being angry at yourself, you're not being humble. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's not productive.
You're fearing, you're fearing the fact that like you have to change. And that's just the fact of fucking life, is that like you have to take a different tack, even if something you did worked before and now it doesn't work. Like, you have to be like, okay, well, obviously something's different. Like,
and I'm hesitant to take a mind state approach, but like it really does speak to a mind state of like, if you bowling poorly on, or performing poorly in whatever you're doing on April 5th, Wednesday night, means that you could never do it again, then like, what are you doing this thing for? Like, you have that little belief in yourself that like tonight means anything. Like, it's with anything else.
Yeah.
Like, it is, you have to be objective, and mindfulness means a lot of things to a lot of people at this point. But like, you have to be mindful, like, tonight is tonight, tomorrow is tomorrow. Today is either the day that I'm the world champion or it's not. And you move on. The answer doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the whole reason we're here is to talk to you about the things we do to keep ourselves waking up, the things we do to keep living, the things we do to try to be nice to the people in our lives we love, the things that help us live life. That's the whole point of anything. You don't sign up for intramural sports, bowling league. You don't sign up for classes because you want to suffer. You sign up for them to feel joy and to live your life. And you can't take that from yourself because you treat yourself like a professional athlete. You're not at the Olympics.
Yeah.
You're not at the Olympics. And even those people should be nice to themselves.
Yeah,
honestly.
Exactly. Yeah. For real. All right. Well, why don't we get to our interview here we have with our friend Maggie. Let's just, I guess let's hop into it.
All right, we are here with Maggie Hendricks. Maggie is fresh off a weekend at the women's NCAA tournament. Looks like working on some sewing right now. Maggie, hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
Yeah,
I am hand-sewing things right now. I'm making hexagons. So.
Oh wow, how many do you have to do?
I believe for this project I have to do 80. I only have like 20 more left.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not bad. That's a good chunk of, that's a better chunk of the way through than I would have expected. Well, welcome back home. I'm sure you had a lot of travel this week, covering the tournament. How was the tournament for you?
It was absolutely fantastic. I mean, we had 3 really, really good games. And then also, like, it seemed like everybody in the world was paying attention to those games, which is a fun thing in covering women's sports. This moment has been coming for a while. A lot of people have been working on it for a while.
Yeah.
So seeing it come to fruition has been really, really special. But also kind of hilarious when I see men who have clearly never watched women's basketball before have opinions with a capital O, you know. Sure. But that's fine. That's
that means that that women's basketball has arrived.
That's
when
right.
People who are totally uninformed have very irrational thoughts about it, because that's exactly where men's sports is.
Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When Shaq is telling Keith Olbermann to shut the fuck up, you know it's made it.
What a beautiful moment. What a beautiful moment.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, glad that was enjoyable, and I'm glad also that there's been so much talk this week of the tournament and people trying to trying to have takes about it and making
I haven't
mistakes.
even seen anybody talking about the men's tournament, basically.
Right.
But the women's tournament has been all over.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, even up to Jill Biden. What a time to be alive.
Did you see she apologized? And then
She should. It's insane.
Then they said they're going to go see the Obamas instead.
That's what Angel Reese said. Like, don't worry, Jill. We're going to go hang out with the Obamas.
Oh my God, that's
got it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Well, we were chatting a little bit beforehand, on like the days of covering Wrigley and running through the stadium and being physically tired and the travel and everything related to tracking these things and commenting on these things and taking videos and, filing and doing everything you have to do. We're here to talk about how do you come back down? How do you get back in your space? How do you put up with your husband, Pete? What how do you keep on the grind and rejuvenating yourself to be up for all this stuff?
For me, it's quilting and sewing those are my two big outlets, and I also cross stitch, and it just basically fiber arts are my go-to because they just occupy a different part of my brain.
Sure.
And I find that like you can't, like that you always hear, like, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to my sewing machine, making something for somebody I care about or for charity, those are the things that, like, or for myself, that's what kind of fills up the cup for me when I'm having those moments where my brain is just, there are no more words. So I need to do something that has nothing to do with words.
Yeah, I even remember just from doing Southpaws, like a lot of people like watching sports is a big outlet and doing things around it. And it gets very, it does like tire your brain down to like pay attention, especially when you have the ability to look at it like with a more critical lens sometimes. And you start seeing it through as a business, and it's like not as fun. So it's always, it was hard for me to like even view watching sports as fun sometimes. So it's kind of how I ended up in all these hobbies and then not even doing that job anymore. So
well, and it's also emotionally tinged, and that's why I personally have got really into wrestling, because it's like, the idea that the bad guy wins is the whole idea, and the payoff is that some point he loses, and it feels awesome. And it feels different than that when Justin Fields throws an interception with 2 minutes left. It feels different from that when the Blackhawks cover up the whole shit that they covered up, right? Like it's way more fun to watch somebody get dropped on their head and then be fine.
And then get up and have a whole skit.
And do a rap on the way out. Yeah. How did you get into quilting and sewing and cross stitching? Is that something that you had family members that did? Did you find it on your own?
Yeah, I found it on my own. I think it was 2014 because it's the summer I got married.
Mm-hmm.
I kept seeing skirts.
Yeah.
That I really liked.
That was a big period for ModCloth, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They were more expensive than I wanted to pay. It bugged me. I didn't feel like they were intricate enough for me to spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to learn how to sew. And there was a store in Chicago on Lincoln by the Trader Joe's that called the Needle Shop.
Mm-hmm.
They had classes there. So I took a learn to sew class, and I loved it. So then I got a sewing machine and started learning from there. At that point, I made one quilt, and I made a quilt for my mom, and it was based on a blanket that my grandma's best friend had crocheted for her.
Oh, wow.
And that when we were cleaning out my grandma's house, my sister accidentally threw away.
Oh no.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I wanted to give my mom something of that blanket that she really wanted. So I made a quilt because, and at that time I was like, that's the only quilt I'm ever doing. I'm never doing anything. It just like at that point in my life, it was not satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2020, after I started making a million masks, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I need to do something meaningful with these scraps because there, like, this was a meaningful time. Obviously, I was making masks to try to keep people alive, and so I just felt like that needed to be something meaningful. So I was like, you know what, I'll try making a quilt out of that. And then
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was that at this point in time, quilting then became my
Yeah.
jam, and I like joined the Chicago Modern Quilt Guild, and I make like I just made Peta quilt. I've made quilts for other family members,
Mm-hmm.
for the Project Linus group, which is we make handmade quilts for kids in the hospital or
Oh
like
yeah.
who are in social care, like it's social agency care, or and I've also made quilts for friends who are going through it.
Yeah.
Like one friend when she was going through a divorce, she and her daughter moved out, and they moved to a very like sterile looking place, a very nice place. Got everything from IKEA, and I was like, they need something in
Right.
that.
Right.
That
I remember so much of like going and having a sleepover downstate Illinois was like somebody's parents would have the wooden rack with all the quilts on it and all the blankets that smelled like their weird house smell. and like and I'm just like now I'm just like, do people even have a house smell anymore? I don't know. Like I feel like you have to have a house smell. Like what are you doing? That's what
The woke mob canceled smells.
yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
we don't
We've
have
been,
smells
okay, so
anymore.
Claire and I have been for the past week trying to figure out why it smells like mall cologne, like high school mall cologne, right? Like there's like like a 19-year-old guy who didn't shower but put mall cologne on. And we've
yeah.
been like, what the fuck? And like our friend Dan has been over and we were like, did Dan like spray cologne somewhere? Like, and I figured he didn't because that's not really him. But still, I couldn't figure it out. We just figured out today it was the candle that was sitting on top of the radiator.
Oh,
And then we were
so
like, why does this candle smell so bad? Like, why did we buy it? That was a week.
Yeah.
That was a week-long process of trying to figure out why there was a 19-year-old sales
Yeah,
guy.
the gifting part reminds me of, I saw like that Reddit thread or whatever where it was like I can't remember if it was like am I the asshole or whatever, but like someone like made a quilt for like a wedding gift or whatever for somebody, and they got like pissed off about it. It was like, it's like I got one from a friend for my wedding, and it's like one of the more thoughtful things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Like, I think some people just don't really get how much work it is to do.
No, I think that is absolutely true. People don't understand. Like they're like, I had to cut every single piece of fabric and then sew them all together and then sandwich it and then put it in together. It's like, if I make you a quilt, it's because I love you. Like,
Yeah.
really, no other word for it. So,
Yeah,
like,
the quilts that we got from Claire's parents last weekend or so are like Amish quilts that like we could probably sell for a decent chunk of money. Like they're exquisite quilts, especially the one that just like Claire's mom accidentally just came up with the trans flag colors on at some point, like before that was even a flag. It's kind of funny. I've been sleeping under that for the past 2 weeks. But just beautiful, exquisite Amish quilts, and it's just like, wow, people pay good money for these things. But
and with Amish, that is all hand done. So
but
all the work. Whew.
what are you gonna do? You're gonna sell this to somebody who took out a PPP loan? I mean, come on.
So you mentioned that you're like in a club, like what is that? There's a community, I'm guessing, around it. Like, I mean, I've seen the quilting shops and stuff, and I've seen the people there. Like, what is that like?
So the Chicago Modern Quilt Guild that I'm a member of, it's like, I think it's about 100 people, mostly women, not all women, who make quilts. And we also have kind of like a shared sensibility about the world. So like, everybody is welcome. We will donate quilts to trans charities, to LGBT, to Black, to white. That's like a really important part of who we are. Um, but yeah, it's just this, like, once a month we have a meeting at Rush Oak Park Hospital, um, and we all, like, we may, like, learn something new about quilting, like why you should label your quilts, or like someone shows how they're able to design their quilts on Procreate, like things like that. Um, and then a huge part of the meeting is also show and tell, where you come and you get to show, like, hey, I made this quilt. And then there's also like a Facebook group where, if like I when I was making Pete's quilt, there's a big curve in it because there's a big sun in it. Well, I wasn't quite sure how exactly I should quilt it, so I asked a question in the Facebook group, and there are people there who have been quilting 50, 60 years, and they all give me, like, I got a bunch of advice on how to handle it, and it's just nice to have this community, because like a lot of people, you learned how to quilt or sew from your mom, and that's who you go to for the advice. Well, my mom couldn't thread a needle, like she is not a crafty, sewy, quilty person. So like I need somebody out there, and like thankfully that's part of what this group gives me.
Yeah, everything that I ever needed repaired, it was like there was someone at church would like, you know, cut the hole in my flannel to be a square and then patch it. It always went off to somebody else.
And that, like, and I am sure at your church there was always somebody, like, there was always some task that this person was like, okay, you have to make the banners for for Sunday and all that stuff. Also, like, that's a lot of creativity and joy for that person.
And a lot of hot glue, possibly. A lot of hot glue and felt. Going to Jeffrey Allen.
Cool because I feel like you know, in this modern age that we live in, you know, it's the greatest time to be able to get into a hobby. Like, if you just decide you want to do something, you can connect with people who do it all around the world. But it is sometimes isolating when you're the only person you know that likes to do the thing that you do. So that's definitely, like, really important. I feel like, too, that there's people out there, like, kind of making this outreach.
I know people have had a lot of different experiences. Like, I know one friend of ours in DC, she's like, the whatever, like, knitting group she's been in, she's been like, oh, like, these groups are actually like really toxic, or, you know, like, regionally, like, there can be lots of different things. So, like, for there to be a very you know, what I would say, altruistic knitting group here in Chicago, I mean, that's a great thing to hear and to know, and that's just Midwest excellency, honestly. That's right. You can't see Maggie's flexing, but that's exactly right.
That does kind of remind me, like, when you were talking about the quilting group, it did remind me, like, I've been in bluegrass circles before, and it does sound like that there's, like, kind of a you know, I don't know, a core of older people that are involved in it that, like you said, kind of gained it from a familial tradition, and now they know that, like, oh, they have to just, like, find anybody who's interested in it to keep it going. And, like, that's always kind of nice, because it's, you know, it's one of the only ways that I really get to meet these old people that have interesting things to say and do. And this is like another, I feel like that's kind of just like another way that things have started to evolve from where we used to be.
There's a woman in the group who, she's a retired CPS teacher, and she just loves, she's like in her 70s, she just loves to share information. And one of the things that she does is she makes purses that go to a menstrual education program in Zambia. And so the one day I said, you know, Donna, maybe I'll make a purse or two. She was like, okay, you're going to cut. What is your work schedule like? Is it flexible? I was like, yeah, I can squeeze off. Like, all right, you're going to come out to the suburbs and you're going to do this class with me. You're going to have a great time. And I was like, oh, all right. And I always, like, if an authoritative older woman tells me what to do, I went to Catholic school. Her in my blood.
Does she drop a hun or a honey?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she tells me and so she's like, this is what you're doing. I'm like, okay. And I had like the most wonderful day.
Yeah.
With this group, we made like something like 20 purses that are all going to Zambia to help girls stay in school, because so that when they get their period, they don't just drop out of school. Like, it's the most ridiculous, like, it's not ridiculous. It's like really cool that I can use this skill to make people's lives better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also just like such a funny chain of how.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I am so much of the belief where, you know, no matter what it is, whether it's cooking your own food, brewing your own beer, making your own quilt, anything that you do with your own hands that you create, or things where like we do like a charity stream, people are always like, oh my God, how did you do that? Wow, it's so wonderful that you did that. And you're like, it's literally just a matter of deciding you want to do it and doing it. Like everything boils down to getting past not doing it to doing it. That's the whole thing. Like that's literally the stages of change, the like self-determination theory, like everything in psychology about how do you do a behavior starts with you have to first decide you want to do it and stop wanting to not do it. And that's the whole point. You have to want to stop coughing before you can stop.
Yeah.
He muted. No, that's good. Nice touch. Professional.
I need the Hawk Harrelson cough button.
Yeah, exactly.
So what Maz was telling me about quilting now, but I think that's like a huge thing, because like I am someone who's going to research everything to death online before I do it.
Sure.
I'm going to read everything I can. I'm going to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
But then at some point you just kind of have to like cross the Rubicon. You have to be like, do it. And that can be so scary.
Yeah.
It was so scary. Like the first time I went to a quilt guild meeting, I was like, I don't know anybody here. What the heck? And then it ended up being like everybody was super welcoming, and it was like, oh, okay, I'm in the right place.
Yeah. And that's like there's some like, you know, obviously bad faith, stupid post, but it's like, you know, all these masculine icons or these, you know, right-wing chuds, like how do we get masculine people in the left, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, shut the fuck up. Like we walked our dog down the alley once, and I found out the old guy at the end of the alley goes to the forest preserve and steals seeds so he can like plant native plants in his backyard. He gave me a Target bag full of milkweed pods so that we could try to get monarchs in our yard. Like there are uncles everywhere. I already posted this. There are uncles everywhere. There are aunts everywhere. There are people that will take you under their wing and teach you how to do things. They will show you things. They will be normal to you. If your family wasn't that good to you, there are people that will be good to you, because not everybody in the world is wounded and hurt and willing to attack people. Like the challenge for this week, I thought about this. The challenge for this week is if you don't feel like you have people, your elders, uncles, grandfathers, grandmothers, you can go get them. Go to the store. Go talk to somebody. Go to the cafe. Go wherever in your town old people hang out. I went to the bluegrass show with a man who's like in his 80s. I met him at the visitation for Claire's father, and he said they used to go to bluegrass with them. And I told Claire's mom, I was like, give me his number. I'll pick him up from the you know, retirement community. I'll take him down there. He ended up driving himself, but I sat with him and I sat with the woman who used to MC the show, and I listened to two 80-year-old people talk shit about everybody in the building, and I had a blast. I had a blast, and I have two new best friends.
Yeah, and honestly, and this isn't just for people. This is for all of us. One of the most important things we can do to stay healthy as we age, have community.
Yes.
It's so huge. And so as we continue to, like, it's important to have that community and have those aunties and uncles and all of that kind of thing of people who won't talk shit about everybody in the building or whatever. Like whatever it is, like it is important to know older people. And I will say to you, listening to this, I'll be 44 this summer. I have 4 nieces and nephews. I am a fantastic aunt. I'm very good at it. So if you're like, I need an aunt to tell, like, fine, DM me. I'm fine. Great.
What's your Twitter account?
Maggie Hendricks, all one word, and it's CKS Hendricks.
Aunt for hire. You got it. You heard it here first.
Yeah, that's honestly why I think everybody just turned so psychopathic after the pandemic was because, at least for me, it was a lot of like realizing that many people are not willing to like participate in community bonds.
Yeah.
And they don't view the world through that lens. Plus, I was being denied getting to even try to have them. We had just moved to North Carolina right when it started, kind of, and we had finally started meeting people and hanging out and doing stuff in the community. And when that ended, it broke my brain. Like, it's still broken from it. And yeah, so it's super important to just get out there and meet people that are maybe, not in the like Bethany Mendel, like make friends with Nazis way, but people are going to be different and have different experiences that they're pulling from and different outlooks. And it is important to like just be chopping it up. Like,
Yeah.
you got to be out there, and it's always easier when you kind of have something shared to get with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll tell you the joy. So like this weekend, I'll be going to a quilt retreat it's just at a hotel near O'Hare, but
They're one of the most relaxing places you can be.
super relaxing. But like just being the whole thing of being in the same room as a bunch of other people making quilts, just making stuff. And some of them aren't even making quilts, but just the joy of making in the room and saying to somebody, do you like the way this looks? Should I change this? Like it's just a delight. And when you watch reality shows that have making at the center, so like the Great Pottery Throwdown or the Bake Off or any shows like that, I think what the things that people love the most, the people who are participants, is that they're finding their tribe. They're finding their people that are like them and having the joy of making together, even though they're making something separate.
Yeah.
And I think there's just such joy in an instant bond when, like, if you're a woodworker, or like you were talking about the quilt shops earlier, I'll go to a quilt shop and I'll find like 15 other people who are going to have opinions on what fabric I should get. Or like I was in London right before the pandemic. I was in London and I was at the store called Liberty, which is like super high-end department store, but they sell fabric there. And I've like dreamed of going there my whole life, or at least started sewing. And and even just like talking to some British woman about what fabric she should get put on a cushion. I mean, it's just, you just get those instant bonds, and it's so cool.
And I do think that's a funny thing, right? Where like, it's like, since I got into like Warhammer, right? Like when you go into like a store that sells that stuff, you're like, oh my God, am I going to get to talk to the one person in the world who actually will listen to me talk about this bullshit? And I'm aware enough to know the person in there is just trying to like make their, $12 an hour or whatever. And it's Saturday and they wish they were at home watching Netflix or whatnot. But, I'm just like, just let me say a couple things. It's all I ask. It's just like, Claire doesn't want to hear it. Nobody else wants to hear me talk about orcs. I'm in Warhammer DM. They'll listen to me talk about orcs, but like, I need to say it to one person who can accept it. And I think like through that, it's like, to me, like the only reason obviously like I need a job right now and need some income, but like the only reason I want to be able to make money is because it would be like, what if we could do something like rent the hideout for a night and have just a general hobby meeting and try to bring in a bunch of people and go pick up a bunch of old people from the retirement community and just, what if we could just get a general thing and just be like, you do a thing, do you quilt, do you tie-dye, do you play with cars, what do you do? Like set up a table and like tell people how to get involved, like try to get people to do it, right? Like it's just it's community, right? Yeah, we need some capital. That's, to me, I think that's the whole thing, is it's like it is about bringing together community and bringing people together. And we've got the Discord and we've got a bunch of people in there talking about different stuff and and getting started and things, but it's for everybody.
Yeah. It's funny that there's like a million events around the women's Final Four that happened, and I was at a brunch on the Saturday. And one of the things that was happening at the brunch is that there was a painter there, and he had a big canvas, and he was painting while the brunch was going on, and then the painting was sold to benefit some charity. I can't remember which one. But it was so cool to talk to him after the painting was done, just about the joy of making and creating.
Yeah.
And now we do totally different things. And this dude's a professional and just does incredible stuff. But just to talk to anybody else about the joy of using your hands to create something. And like you said, with the tie dye, like you put the work in and then a couple hours later, you're done with it. And it's like, oh, look at this cool shit I had, Like it doesn't even matter necessarily what your thing is, as long as it's a thing that you share in common.
Well, I think that's like the important part is that I think a lot of people, their hobbies are very passive. Like they're very into sports, or they're very into watching Marvel movies or stuff like that. And it's like, well, that's only going to get you so far, because like you don't have anything to show for it, and it's just like less. Yeah, it doesn't require any input from you. It doesn't take any vulnerability. It doesn't take any practice
to like
skill.
carry it into like scientific terms. Like in psychology, like in undergrad, the thing that we studied in my lab was self-esteem, right? Like the big joke of the 90s, self-esteem. You can't change people's self-esteem. You can't make them feel better about themselves. You just can't do it. You can tell somebody, hey, you're great. We love you, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. But what does matter is you can have people think about success that they've had, things that they've accomplished, and they will feel better about themselves by remembering that they have succeeded before and they have accomplished and done things before. And through that, like getting through all of Lost doesn't make you feel accomplished. Like you're like, thank God I'm done with that. But like when I'm binge watching TV, it's like depressing, and it just feels like I have to finish this. It feels like eating like a Burger King Whopper. Like I have to finish this, and it's good enough. But like there's nothing inherently good about finishing this. But when you make something and you finish something and you do something, you feel good about it. Yeah. And that's the whole thing, is that you have to, we're not out here to talk shit about hobbies that are passive, but we are here to say that like it is scientifically proven through research that doing things and accomplishing things makes you feel good, whether it's doing the dishes or finishing a quilt or doing whatever. Like you have to do things. You have to. You don't really have a choice.
I did an article a few years back. I was after the 2016 Olympics, where I talked to a bunch of different track athletes, and it was all women. And I asked them, like, because especially like the sprinters, when you see them come out, they just look like, yeah, I'm going to win this race. I'm going to kick everybody's ass. Even the ones who know they're not, but still have that faith. I asked them, like, where do you get the confidence to do this? Every single one of them gave me some sort of the same response, that it was from their preparation, that it was from the workouts they had done, and that the workouts they had done were so much harder than any race they were ever going to run. So they knew they were going to be fine and be able to go out there and do their best. And I think about those discussions all the time. Whenever I'm like, whatever I'm preparing for, I think about like, if I'm going to shirk on it in any way, I'm like, but you know exactly what Allison Felix and Emma Coburn told you. So you need to get your ass up.
Yeah. Well, luckily most of us are competing against our job and our depression. and just need to keep going and keep getting out of bed and doing what we need to do. Thank God we're not on that level of competitive nature. But I think your story of how you got into quilting, I think, summarizes it very well. You knew something that existed in your world and you wanted to recreate it. And the challenge to yourself was to recreate it. And it was hard and it sucked. And you actually didn't enjoy that because it's, Cheston Mahaly flow, right? Like the the x-axis is ability and the y-axis is difficulty, or the other way, whichever, it doesn't matter. But there's a place where the challenge and the skill that you have line up, and there's a place where it doesn't. And when you're not challenged, you're bored, and where it's above your ability, you're stressed out. And that's the way that it works. But once you get through accomplishing one thing, by the time you come back, you know what to avoid. Like, it's the amount of learning, and that's why I love finding new hobbies, is because the most addicting thing in hobby is that point where you figure out what the things you didn't know are. And then the second time you try to do it, you know what to not do.
Right.
And that's when then you go like, what if I did this element I don't know how to do? What if I took on this thing that's just beyond my reach? How do I get that? How do I get enough confidence from other people to do that? And that's being a hobbyist, is trying to stretch your ability and trying to avoid the boredom piece.
Right.
Really.
Yeah. And is there a class out there? Is there a YouTube tutorial that'll teach me? Let me tell you something about sewing and quilting. Anything I want to do, I can usually find a YouTube tutorial from a woman with a very kind, probably Midwestern accent. And I just see her hands as she does it. And it's very soothing. And she always has like the best manicure and a giant diamond ring. And it doesn't matter. Always a different woman, but it's the same woman, you know? And I love that. Like, I know I can count on that from the people I'll never meet from the sewing and quilting community, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Shout out Mr. Tie-Dye. Thanks for all the tie-dye tips.
See? Yeah. These are people.
Yeah, I mean, I've been learning to weld, and I didn't take a class on it. I just watched a couple guys be like, you just fiddle the knob around, and then eventually it looks like this, and then that means it's right.
Well, I think that the important piece is that you learn a lot more from failing than succeeding in most of these things. Like, if you go out and you execute the perfect quilt round one, you don't really learn anything. You're just like, I can just do whatever I want. But if you make a bunch of mistakes, it's like you might waste 20 hours of your life, but you're going to do that anyway.
Yeah, and it's not a waste because you're learning.
Exactly.
It's easy to say, but it's true.
Yeah, you keep waking up and getting more time. It's the idea of time being precious is so silly. So silly. We just keep the next week it'll be Wednesday again. Like, who fucking cares? Well, Maggie, thank you for joining and jumping in and telling us.
Thank you, Maggie.
Your experience and how this has worked for you. Very excited to see what comes. Also, if there is anything from any of the groups you're working with, share that to us so we can share that out to people if they think that sounds cool and they can contribute anything to that. Or if they want to get involved in quilting and find some community in Chicago, we can help you out with that. Also, don't miss out on the chance to get a new aunt. Yeah,
call me. I'm here.
Well, DM. You said DM.
Yeah.
You don't want to get a phone call. The election season just ended. The last thing you want is more phone calls.
No more. I don't.
Just get the DM.
Won't answer. I was thinking you're getting money from me. So.
That's fair. Anything that you have to plug or have to say?
I mean, just follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Maggie Hendricks, and that's really it. Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing exciting.
Has Pete been good this week?
He has. Literally right now, I smell dinner that he's cooking for me.
Oh, that's good.
This is 3 days in a row he's cooked me amazing dinners. So
wonderful. Well, you haven't had it yet. You don't know it's amazing.
What a nice Pete.
What a nice Pete. What a very nice Jayhawk he is. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining. And we hope that you have a good week. And we hope that Pete doesn't find anything to bid on Bring a Trailer this week.
Oh, God.
Do you know about the bit where I just go and Photoshop every time somebody shares a stupid car in car chat? I just go and Photoshop it onto Pete's profile that he's bid on it.
You probably will want to. So
yeah. Well, it's a good bit. I probably won't stop doing it.
Don't stop.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Great
Yes,
to meet
thank
you.
you.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks,
See you,
guys.
perverts.